Captain Vexistar pressed his four-fingered hand against the cold metal wall of his ship. The Harmony's light was dying around him. Sparks flew from broken control panels. The air tasted bitter with smoke and fear. Through the cracked view screen, he could see the dark emptiness of space where stars should have been. 3 days ago, his research vessel had been exploring a new solar system. The Zephyrians were peaceful explorers who studied planets and collected samples of alien plants. They had no weapons on their ship. Violence was something their people had forgotten long ago. War was just an old word in their history books, but the universe still remembered war. Pirates had found them. The attack came without warning. Laser fire tore through their hull like paper. The pirates took what they wanted and left the Zephyrians to die slowly. Now the ship drifted in space with no power to move and barely enough air to breathe. Vextar looked at his crew of 12. Scientists and doctors, all of them. Good people who had families waiting at home. His communications officer, a young female named Zara, worked desperately at her damaged console. Her green skin had turned pale with exhaustion. "Still no response to our distress signal, Captain," she said. Her voice was weak but determined. "I have been broadcasting on all known frequencies for 72 hours. Vextar nodded. He knew the truth that Zara was too young to understand. Help was not coming. The Karathi Empire was fighting rebels in their home system. The Million Collective was busy with trade disputes. The other peaceful races of the galaxy were too far away or too afraid to help a single damaged ship. The Zephyrians were alone. On the other side of the galaxy, Lieutenant Commander Jake Morrison sat in front of a wall of glowing screens. The Terran Defense Network Communications Center was quiet at 3 a.m. Most of the other operators had gone home to their families. Jake stayed because someone had to watch for signals from deep space. Earth was still new to space travel. Humans had only developed faster than light engines 5 years ago. Most alien races treated them like dangerous children who might break something important. The few peaceful species who talked to Earth were polite but distant. They seemed afraid of humans for reasons Jake did not understand. A soft beep made Jake look up from his coffee. One of the screens showed a new signal coming from the outer edge of known space. The computer was trying to translate the alien language. Words appeared slowly on his screen. Help. Ship damaged. Life support failing. Peaceful research vessel. 12 souls aboard. Jake leaned forward. This was a distress call from aliens he had never heard of before. The signal was weak and getting weaker. Whoever was sending it was running out of power. He checked Earth's response protocols. The rules were clear. Humans were not part of any galactic alliance. They had no responsibility to help alien ships in trouble. Earth's only deep space vessel was the ESS Defiant, and it was supposed to stay in Earth's solar system for defense. But Jake had been a soldier before he became a space communications officer. He had served 3 tours of duty in Afghanistan, where he learned that good people helped other good people when they were in trouble. It did not matter what country they came from or what language they spoke. Jake thought about the message. 12 people were dying slowly in the cold darkness of space. They had asked for help and no one was answering. He made a decision that would change everything. Jake walked across the empty communication center to another console. He pulled up the personnel files for the ESS Defiant. The ship needed a crew of 4 for a rescue mission. He knew exactly who to call. Lisa Chang was the best pilot in Earth's small space fleet. She could fly anything with engines and make it dance through an asteroid field. Jake found her home number and called. "Lisa, it's Jake. I need you to meet me at the spaceport in 1 hour. Jake, it's 3 a.m. What's going on? There are aliens dying in space and we're going to save them. Lisa was quiet for a moment. Then she laughed. You're serious, aren't you? This is going to get us in so much trouble. Probably. Are you in? Give me 30 minutes to pack. Next, Jake called Carlos Rodriguez. Carlos was an engineer who could fix anything and make it work better than before. He also had a habit of ignoring rules when people needed help. Carlos, wake up. Emergency rescue mission. Space aliens. 1 hour. Are we stealing the Defiant? Borrowing. Even better. I'll bring my tools. The last call went to Danny O'Brien. Danny was a medic who had saved more lives than anyone Jake knew. He had gentle hands and a fierce determination to keep people alive no matter what. Danny, we've got wounded aliens in space. Unknown biology. Can you handle it? Unknown biology just means I get to learn something new while I save lives. I'll grab my medical kit. 1 hour later, 4 humans stood in the cargo bay of the ESS Defiant. The ship was beautiful and terrible at the same time. It was designed for exploration but could fight if necessary. Earth's engineers had built it with human stubbornness and creativity. "So let me understand this," Lisa said as she ran through the pre-flight checklist. "We're stealing Earth's only deep space warship to rescue aliens that most humans have never heard of." "That's about right," Jake replied. He was entering the coordinates from the distress signal into the navigation computer. "And we're doing this why?" Carlos asked while checking the ship's systems. Danny looked up from his medical supplies. "Because they asked for help and no one else is coming." "That's a good enough reason for me," Lisa said. She pressed the engine start sequence. The Defiant's massive engines came to life with a sound like controlled thunder. Jake sat in the captain's chair and opened ship-wide communications. "This is unofficial rescue mission 1. We have people in trouble and we're going to bring them home. Everyone ready?" 3 voices answered yes. "Then let's go save some lives." The ESS Defiant lifted off from Earth and jumped to hyperspace. Behind them, alarms started going off in military bases around the world. Earth's only deep space warship had just been stolen by 4 people who thought helping strangers was more important than following orders. In space, Captain Vexistar felt his ship shudder as another system failed. The temperature was dropping as their heating system lost power. His crew huddled together for warmth, but he could see the fear in their large, dark eyes. "Captain," Zara called out weakly, "I'm getting a response to our distress call." Vextar felt hope stir in his chest for the first time in days. "Who is responding?" Zara's fingers moved over her console, trying to clean up the signal. "The message is in a language the computer doesn't recognize. It's coming from... Wait, this can't be right. What is it?" "The signal is coming from the direction of the Sol system. That's where the humans live." Vextar felt his hope turn to confusion. The humans were new to space travel. They were not part of any alliance or rescue organization. Most important, they were said to be dangerous. Other species warned that humans were violent and unpredictable. "Are you certain?" "Yes, Captain. A human ship is coming to help us." Vextar looked at his crew. They were scientists and explorers who had spent their lives studying the peaceful species of the galaxy. Now their only hope for survival was coming from a race that the galaxy feared. But they were out of options. In a few hours, their air would run out completely. If the humans wanted to hurt them, at least his crew would die quickly instead of slowly suffocating. "Send them our location," Vextar ordered, "and pray that the stories about humans are wrong." In hyperspace, the ESS Defiant raced toward a meeting that would change the galaxy forever. 4 humans who had never met an alien were about to discover what it meant to be the species that others called when they needed help. The ESS Defiant dropped out of hyperspace 3 days after leaving Earth. Jake Morrison stood on the bridge looking at the sensor readings with growing concern. What they found was much worse than a single damaged research ship. "Lisa, are you seeing this?" Jake asked. Lisa Chang sat in the pilot's seat, her hands dancing over the controls as she tried to make sense of what the sensors were telling them. "I count 15 ships total. 12 look like they match our distress signal. But those other 3, those are warships," Carlos Rodriguez said from the engineering station. His voice was tight with worry. "Big ones. And they're not here to help." Danny O'Brien moved to the medical scanners. "Jake, I'm reading life signs on the damaged ships, but they're weak. Whatever's happening here, we need to move fast." Jake studied the tactical display. The situation was clear and terrible. A small fleet of peaceful alien ships was surrounded by 3 massive predator vessels. The attacking ships were sleek and dark, built for one purpose: violence. They were like wolves circling wounded deer. "Carlos, what can you tell me about those attack ships?" Carlos pulled up the computer's database on known alien species. According to Earth's files, those look like Krillian raiders. The database says they're a warrior race that attacks peaceful ships for slaves and cargo. They've been terrorizing this part of space for decades. How many crew on each raider ship? Probably 200 fighters each. That's 600 armed aliens. Lisa turned around in her pilot seat. "And there are 4 of us." "Not good odds," Danny said quietly. Jake felt the weight of command settle on his shoulders. Back on Earth, this would be simple. A military unit would call for backup, develop a careful plan, and attack with overwhelming force. But they were alone in deep space with no backup coming. The peaceful aliens below were dying while he tried to figure out what to do. On one of the Krillian ships, war leader Threx studied the new arrival with mild interest. His red eyes focused on the strange vessel that had just appeared. It was smaller than his raiders, but built differently than any ship he had seen before. What species? He growled to his sensor operator. Unknown, war leader. The ship design does not match our database. Threx laughed, a harsh sound that echoed through his ship's bridge. One small ship against 3 raiders. Either they are very brave or very stupid. Should we destroy them? Not yet. Let them watch us finish with the Zephyrians first. Then we will capture their ship and see what new species we have found. Threx turned back to his main target. The Zephyrian research fleet was almost ready to surrender. Their ships were damaged and helpless. Soon he would have new slaves to sell and cargo to steal. The unknown ship could wait its turn. On the ESS Defiant, Jake made his decision. Lisa, can you get us closer without being detected? These raiders are focused on their targets. I can use the asteroid field to hide our approach. What's the plan? Jake pulled up Earth's military tactics database. Every strategy was designed for fighting other humans who thought like humans. But maybe that was an advantage. Maybe aliens who had fought the same way for centuries would not expect human unpredictability. We're going to hit them fast and disappear. Carlos, I need you to modify our weapons. More power, shorter range, maximum damage. I can do that, but our energy reserves won't last long in a sustained fight. We're not going to fight fair, Jake said. We're going to fight like humans. Danny looked up from his medical station. What can I do? Get ready to treat alien wounded. We don't know their biology, but you'll figure it out. The ESS Defiant moved through the asteroid field like a hunting cat. Lisa had learned to fly in Earth's atmosphere where pilots had to deal with weather, gravity, and obstacles. Space combat for most aliens was formal and predictable. Human pilots flew like the universe was trying to kill them, because on Earth it usually was. First target in range, Lisa reported. The raider on the left flank. Fire, Jake ordered. The Defiant's modified weapons struck the Krillian ship like a hammer blow. Carlos had focused all their firepower into a narrow beam that cut through armor like paper. The raider's shields collapsed and its hull cracked open. Direct hit. They're venting atmosphere. Move to the next target. Don't give them time to react. But the Krillians were already reacting. War leader Threx roared orders as his ship turned to face this new threat. The unknown vessel moved like nothing he had ever seen. It twisted and rolled through space using maneuvers that should have torn it apart. All ships, destroy the intruder, Threx commanded. The 3 raider ships opened fire with everything they had. Laser beams and plasma bolts filled the space around the Defiant. But Lisa flew through the weapons fire like she was dancing. She used the damaged Zephyrian ships as cover, forcing the raiders to choose between hitting the humans or destroying their own prizes. These aliens are terrible shots, Lisa said as she rolled the ship under a barrage of laser fire. They're not used to targets that move like we do, Jake replied. Keep them guessing. The Defiant struck again. This time, Carlos had prepared a different surprise. Instead of a focused beam, he fired a spread of small projectiles. Simple chunks of metal accelerated to incredible speed. The second raider ship ran straight into the cloud of debris. Its armor held, but the impacts knocked out its weapon systems. Jake, I've got an idea, Carlos said. These raiders expect ship-to-ship combat. What if we don't give them a ship to shoot at? What do you mean? I can overload our main reactor and eject it like a torpedo. When it explodes, it'll look like they destroyed us. But we'll already be gone. It was a crazy plan. It was also typically human, using their own ship's destruction as a weapon. Do it. Carlos worked frantically at his console, reactor ready to eject. Lisa, I need you to put us right between those 2 remaining raiders. You want me to fly into a crossfire? Trust me. Lisa pushed the Defiant's engines to maximum. The ship shot forward like a bullet, heading straight for the space between the 2 largest raider vessels. Both Krillian ships fired everything they had at the approaching human ship. Now, Carlos. The Defiant ejected its main reactor and disappeared in a massive explosion. For a moment, the space between the raiders was filled with blinding light and deadly radiation. Both Krillian ships were caught in the blast. Their shields collapsed and their hulls buckled. Where did they go? War leader Threx demanded. His ship was damaged, but still fighting. His sensor operator was confused. The explosion destroyed them, but I don't see any debris. What the Krillians could not see was the ESS Defiant hidden in the shadow of a large asteroid. The ship was running on emergency power, nearly invisible to sensors. Jake and his crew watched as the confused raiders tried to figure out what had happened. Third target is moving away from the Zephyrian ships, Lisa reported quietly. They're afraid, Danny said with surprise. A species that's terrorized this region for decades, and they're retreating. 2 of their ships are badly damaged, Jake observed. They don't know how many of us there are or where we'll strike next. War leader Threx made a decision that would haunt him for the rest of his life. The unknown enemy had destroyed or disabled 2 of his 3 ships using tactics he did not understand. His remaining raider was damaged and his crew was shaken. All ships retreat to hyperspace, he ordered. We will return with reinforcements. The surviving Krillian vessels limped away into hyperspace, leaving the Zephyrian research fleet alone and safe. On the bridge of the Harmony's light, Captain Vexistar stared at his sensors in disbelief. The human ship had appeared from nowhere and driven off 3 raider vessels in less than an hour. Now it was approaching his damaged fleet. They're sending a communication, Zara reported, the view screen activated, showing 4 humans on their ship's bridge. They looked tired but determined. The one in the captain's chair spoke in carefully pronounced Zephyrian. This is Jake Morrison of the Earth ship Defiant. We received your distress call. Do you need medical assistance? Vextar found his voice. You came to help us. That's why we're here, Jake replied simply. For the first time in 3 days, Captain Vexistar felt hope instead of fear. These dangerous humans had crossed the galaxy to save strangers they had never met. Perhaps the stories about humanity were wrong, or perhaps they were right, and that was exactly what the galaxy needed. Captain Vextar watched through his damaged view screen as the human ship slowly approached the Harmony's light. His 4-fingered hands shook as he tried to process what had just happened. 3 Krillian raider ships had been driven away by 4 aliens from a species the galaxy barely knew existed. Captain, they're requesting permission to dock, Zara reported from her communication station. Grant it, Vextar said quietly. He looked at his crew of scientists and researchers. None of them had ever met a human before. The stories other species told about Earth's people were frightening. Humans were supposed to be violent, unpredictable, dangerous, but these humans had just saved their lives. On the ESS Defiant, Danny O'Brien gathered his medical supplies. He had treated wounded soldiers in Afghanistan and car accident victims in Chicago, but he had never tried to save an alien life before. Everything he knew about medicine was based on human biology. Jake, I don't know if my equipment will work on their bodies, Danny said as he packed his emergency kit. You'll figure it out, Jake replied. You always do. Lisa Chang was running diagnostics on the docking system. Their ship design is completely different from ours. I'm not sure our airlocks will match. Carlos Rodriguez looked up from his engineering console. I can modify our docking collar to fit their ship. Give me 10 minutes. 10 minutes later, the ESS Defiant connected to the Zephyrian research vessel. The airlock sealed with a soft hiss, and Jake felt the artificial gravity shift as the 2 ships synchronized their systems. Everyone ready? Jake asked. His crew nodded. They had come this far together. Now they were about to meet their first aliens face to face. The airlock door opened. Captain Vextar stood on the other side, flanked by 2 of his officers. The Zephyrians were tall and thin with pale green skin that seemed to shimmer in the light. Their large, dark eyes held intelligence and curiosity. They wore simple robes that looked more like scientific equipment than clothing. Captain Vextar of the research vessel Harmony's Light, the alien said in careful English. You are Jake Morrison? That's right, Jake replied. This is my crew. Lisa Chang, our pilot. Carlos Rodriguez, our engineer. And Danny O'Brien, our medic. Vextar studied each human carefully. They were shorter than Zephyrians, but more solidly built. Their skin came in different colors and their hair grew in various shades. Most interesting were their eyes. Where Zephyrian eyes showed calm intelligence, human eyes seemed to burn with inner fire. Your species is younger than ours, Vextar observed, yet you fight like ancient warriors. We fight like humans, Jake said simply. How many of your people are injured? 7 wounded, 2 critical. Our medical officer was hurt in the first attack. Danny stepped forward. Can I see them? Vextar hesitated. Allowing an alien to treat his crew was a risk, but his people were dying. Follow me. They moved through the Zephyrian ship's corridors. The walls were smooth and curved, decorated with paintings of peaceful landscapes and scientific diagrams. Everything was designed for beings who had never known war. The medical bay was a disaster. Broken equipment sparked on damaged tables. Several Zephyrians lay on beds, their green skin turned pale with pain and blood loss. The smell of fear filled the air. Danny took one look around and got to work. He pulled out his scanner and began examining the wounded aliens. His hands moved quickly and surely as he adapted his human medical knowledge to Zephyrian biology. Their blood chemistry is different, but not too different. Danny muttered as he worked. Oxygen-based, similar pressure requirements. I can work with this. The first patient was a young Zephyrian female with a deep cut across her arm. Danny cleaned the wound and began stitching it closed. The alien watched him with wide, frightened eyes. It's okay, Danny said softly. I'm going to fix this. You're going to be fine. The Zephyrian did not understand his words, but she understood his tone. Danny's voice was gentle but determined. His hands were steady and sure. Most importantly, his eyes showed the same fierce protectiveness that Zephyrian parents showed toward their children. What is he doing? Asked Zara, who had followed them to the medical bay. He's treating her like she matters, Vextar replied with wonder. While Danny worked on the wounded, Carlos examined the ship's damaged systems. The Zephyrian engineers followed him around like students watching a master at work. Carlos looked at their advanced technology and immediately saw ways to make it better. Your power distribution system is too centralized, Carlos explained to the chief engineer, an elderly Zephyrian named Kef. One hit to your main conduit and everything goes down. You need redundant pathways. But that would be less efficient, Kef protested. Efficiency doesn't matter if you're dead, Carlos replied. He began pulling panels off the walls, showing the Zephyrian engineers how to reroute power around damaged sections. On Earth, we build everything like it's going to break because it probably will. The Zephyrians watched in fascination as Carlos jury-rigged their systems with spare parts from the human ship. He connected incompatible technologies using methods that violated several engineering principles, but somehow worked perfectly. How do you know this will function? Kef asked. Because I understand what the machines want to do, Carlos said as he sealed a power coupling with tape and wire. Your people build things to be perfect. Humans build things to survive. Meanwhile, Lisa had discovered something that changed everything. In the ship's recreation area, she found a group of young Zephyrians hiding under tables. They were children, barely old enough to understand what had happened to their ship. The young aliens were terrified. They had heard adult Zephyrians talking about the violent humans who had saved them. Stories said humans were dangerous predators who came from a death world. But when Lisa knelt down to their level, they saw something different. Hey there, Lisa said softly. Are you scared? The children did not understand her words, but they understood her smile. Lisa sat on the floor next to their hiding place and began showing them pictures on her tablet computer. Images of Earth appeared on the screen. Green forests, blue oceans, and animals they had never seen before. This is where I come from, Lisa explained, even though they could not understand. It's beautiful, but it's also dangerous. We have storms that can destroy cities and animals that hunt in packs, but we also have this. She showed them a picture of human children playing in a park. The Zephyrian youngsters crept closer, fascinated by the images of small humans running and laughing together. One brave Zephyrian child reached out to touch the tablet screen. Lisa gently took the child's hand and showed her how to swipe through the pictures. Soon all the young aliens were gathered around, looking at images of Earth and asking questions in their own language. She is teaching them, observed an adult Zephyrian who had been watching from the doorway. More than that, Vextar said. She is protecting them. Look at her body language, it was true. Lisa sat between the children and the doorway, positioning herself as a barrier against any threat. When other adults approached, she made eye contact to ensure they meant no harm. Her protective instincts had activated automatically around the young aliens. This is how humans behave around their offspring, Vextar realized. They are guardians by nature. Back in the medical bay, Danny had finished treating the wounded Zephyrians. All 7 patients were stable and recovering. The 2 critical cases would live to see their families again. Danny sat in a corner, exhausted but satisfied. A young Zephyrian engineer named Vel approached him carefully. She had watched Danny work for 2 hours, seeing how he fought for each patient like their life was the most important thing in the universe. Why? Vel asked in broken English. Why what? Danny replied. Why save us? We are not your species. Danny looked at the recovering aliens around him. They were strange and wonderful, completely different from humans but somehow the same where it mattered. They felt pain, they felt fear. They wanted to live and see their loved ones again. Because you needed help, Danny said simply. Vel stared at him with her large, dark eyes. That is all? That's everything. Captain Vexitar called his crew together in the main meeting room. The humans stood on one side, the Zephyrians on the other. Between them was a gap of understanding that was slowly closing. Jake Morrison of Earth, Vexitar said formally. Your species has saved 12 Zephyrian lives today. How do we repay this debt? No debt, Jake replied. You called for help. We answered. That's what neighbors do. But we are not neighbors. Our worlds are many light years apart. In space, everyone is a neighbor, Lisa said. Distance doesn't matter when someone needs help. Vexitar felt something shift in his understanding of the universe. For generations, the Zephyrians had believed that species helped each other only when they had something to gain. Treaties were signed for trade benefits. Alliances were formed for mutual protection. But these humans had risked their lives for strangers and wanted nothing in return. What kind of world creates people like you? Vexitar asked. A dangerous one, Carlos replied. Earth tried to kill us for millions of years. Storms, earthquakes, predators, diseases. We survived by helping each other. The ones who worked together lived. The ones who didn't died. So you help others because your world taught you to? News traveled fast across the galaxy. Within 1 week, every major species knew about the humans who had driven off Krillian raiders to save a Zephyrian research fleet. The story grew with each telling. Some said a single human ship had destroyed an entire raider battle group. Others claimed hundreds of human warships had appeared from nowhere. On the crystal world of Mileus, Ambassador Kelon studied the battle recordings that Captain Vexitar had transmitted to the Galactic communication network. The Malayan was a tall, graceful being with silver skin and 6 arms that moved like flowing water. His species were master diplomats who had helped maintain peace in the galaxy for thousands of years. But the recordings he watched made no sense. Computer, replay the battle sequence from timestamp 14.7 to 15.3, Kelon commanded. The holographic display showed the human ship performing an impossible maneuver. It rolled completely upside down while flying through a crossfire, used its own destroyed reactor as a weapon, then disappeared for several minutes before striking again from a completely different angle. Analysis. Probability of survival for those maneuvers? 0%, the computer replied. No known species could survive the gravitational stress of those flight patterns. Yet they did survive. Kelon had spent 3 centuries studying military tactics from every known civilization. Each species fought in predictable ways based on their biology and culture. The Karathi used overwhelming force. The Thraxians preferred defensive positions. The peaceful species avoided combat entirely. But these humans fought like no one he had ever seen. They used their own weaknesses as weapons. They turned retreat into attack. They made their enemies afraid by doing things that should have killed them. Send a priority message to the Council of Worlds, Kelon said. Emergency session required. Subject: the human problem. On Earth, Jake Morrison sat in a military courtroom facing a panel of senior officers. His crew stood beside him, all of them in dress uniforms with their ranks stripped away. They had been charged with theft of military property, unauthorized departure from Earth space, and making first contact without government approval. General Patricia Hayes read the charges in a voice like ice. Lieutenant Commander Morrison, you and your crew stole humanity's most advanced warship and left Earth's solar system without permission. How do you plead? Guilty, ma'am, Jake replied without hesitation. You understand that these charges could result in life imprisonment? Yes, ma'am. General Hayes leaned forward. Then why did you do it? Jake looked at his crew. Lisa Chang stood straight and proud. Carlos Rodriguez had oil stains on his uniform from working on alien technology. Danny O'Brien still had Zephyrian medical data on his tablet, trying to understand alien biology so he could help more people. Because 12 people were going to die if we did nothing, Jake said simply. 12 aliens. General Hayes corrected. Not humans, not our responsibility. 12 people, Jake repeated firmly. It doesn't matter what planet they came from. The courtroom was quiet for a long moment. General Hayes had read Jake's military record. He was a decorated soldier who had saved human lives in Afghanistan. His crew were all exemplary officers with spotless records. They were not criminals or rebels. They were good people who had risked everything to help strangers. "The court will recess for deliberation," General Hayes announced. But before the judges could leave, the courtroom doors opened. A young lieutenant ran in carrying an urgent message tablet. He handed it to General Hayes and whispered something in her ear. The general's expression changed as she read the message. She looked up at Jake and his crew with something like wonder in her eyes. "It seems your unauthorized rescue mission has caused quite a stir," she said. "The Zephyrian government has formally invited Earth to join the Galactic Council. The Millian Collective wants to establish trade relations, and 3 other species have requested human assistance with their own pirate problems." Jake felt a flutter of hope in his chest. "However," General Hayes continued, "the Council of Worlds has also called an emergency session to discuss whether humanity represents a threat to galactic peace. They are apparently concerned about our violent nature." "Are we violent?" Lisa asked quietly. "Compared to species that have lived in peace for centuries?" "Yes, we are," the general replied. "The question is whether that's good or bad for the galaxy." On the station world of Nexus Prime, representatives from 47 different species gathered in the Great Council chamber. The room was a marvel of alien architecture, with floating seats arranged in concentric circles around a central platform. Each species sat in an area designed for their particular biology and comfort needs. Elder Zenth of the Karathi Empire was the first to speak. His people were reptilian warriors who had given up conquest centuries ago to become protectors of trade routes. Zenth's golden scales caught the light as he rose from his heated chair. "Fellow council members," Zenth began, his voice carrying the authority of 1,000 years of leadership. "We face a new situation that could change everything we have built. The humans of Earth have demonstrated military capabilities that concern me greatly." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. The Karathi were respected throughout the galaxy. If they were worried, others would listen. "The battle recordings show tactics we have never seen before," Zenth continued. "These humans fight without honor, without rules, without predictability. They use their own ships as weapons. They strike from impossible positions. They do not follow any known military doctrine." Ambassador Kelon of the Millian Collective requested permission to speak. Elder Zenth raises valid concerns. "However, we must also consider that the humans use these tactics to save civilian lives, not to conquer territory." "Intent does not matter," Zenth replied sharply. "A species that can defeat Krillian raiders so easily could defeat any of our military forces just as quickly. They are too dangerous to ignore." Captain Vextar stood up in the section reserved for the Zephyrian delegation. As the alien who had actually met humans face to face, his words would carry special weight. "Honored council members," Vextar said, his voice carrying across the vast chamber, "I have spent 6 days with the humans who saved my ship. I have watched them work, listened to them speak, observed how they treat others. Yes, they are dangerous, but they are not dangerous to us." "Explain," demanded Elder Zenth. "The humans come from what we would call a death world. Their planet tried to kill them for millions of years. They survived by developing traits we find frightening: aggression, unpredictability, willingness to take terrible risks. But they also developed something else." Vextar activated a holographic display showing images from his ship's security cameras. The council watched Danny O'Brien working frantically to save wounded Zephyrians. They saw Lisa Chang protecting alien children. They witnessed Carlos Rodriguez teaching Zephyrian engineers how to build better systems. They developed an instinct to protect others. Vextar continued, "Not just their own species, but anyone who needs help. They crossed the galaxy to save strangers they had never met. They asked for nothing in return. This is not the behavior of conquerors. But what happens when their interests conflict with ours?" asked Representative Thilla of the Aquatic Federation. "What happens when helping one species means harming another?" It was a good question that made the entire council uncomfortable. The galaxy had been at peace for centuries because conflicts were resolved through negotiation and compromise. But humans seemed to believe in absolute right and wrong, good and evil. Elder Zenth spoke again. "The humans have already demonstrated that they will ignore our laws and treaties when they believe someone needs help. They stole their own government's warship to rescue aliens they had no obligation to save. What happens when they decide our laws are preventing them from doing what they think is right?" The chamber fell silent as council members considered this possibility. Finally, a new voice spoke from the visitors' gallery. President Helen Martinez of Earth had arrived on Nexus Prime to observe the proceedings. She was a small woman with graying hair and tired eyes, but her voice carried the authority of someone who had led humanity through its first contact with alien civilizations. Honored council members, President Martinez said, "You are asking the wrong question. You're asking what humans will do if our interests conflict with yours, but you should be asking what we'll do if innocent people are in danger and no one else will help them." She stood up and every alien in the chamber focused on her. The answer is simple. We'll help them anyway. We'll break rules, ignore treaties, and risk everything to save lives. Because that's what humans do. We don't ask permission to do what's right. Elder Zenth's scales darkened with concern. And if the Council of Worlds decides that humanity is too dangerous to be allowed freedom in space? President Martinez smiled, and there was something in that expression that made several council members shift uncomfortably in their seats. "Then you'll have to stop us," she said quietly. "Good luck with that." The chamber erupted in shocked whispers. No species had ever spoken to the Council of Worlds with such defiance. Ambassador Keelan called for order. "President Martinez, surely you're not threatening the entire galactic community?" 6 months after the rescue of the Harmony's light, the galaxy had learned to watch for human ships. They appeared in the strangest places at the most desperate times. A mining colony under pirate attack would suddenly find human fighters diving through asteroid fields to drive off raiders. A plague-stricken world would receive human medical teams who worked until they collapsed from exhaustion. Natural disasters that threatened entire civilizations would bring human rescue ships that flew through conditions no other species would dare face. On Earth, the Terran Intervention Corps had grown from 4 volunteers to over 15,000. President Helen Martinez had kept her promise to make helping others humanity's official policy. The application process to join the Corps was supposed to take months of careful screening. Instead, it filled up faster than the government could process the paperwork. Jake Morrison, now Admiral of the Terran Intervention Corps, stood on the bridge of his new flagship, the ESS Guardian. It was larger than the Defiant, but built with the same human philosophy: tough, fast, and ready for trouble. Around him, his original crew had taken on new responsibilities. Lisa Chang commanded the fighter squadrons. Carlos Rodriguez led the engineering teams. Danny O'Brien ran the medical corps. The bridge was quiet as they traveled through hyperspace toward their latest assignment. A distress call had come from New Harmony, a peaceful trading station at the edge of known space. Pirates were demanding surrender and the local defense forces were too far away to help. "Jake, you need to see this," Lisa said from her console. "I'm reading 40 ships surrounding the trading station." Jake moved to the tactical display. What he saw made his blood run cold. Those aren't pirates. Those are Krillian Empire warships. The same species that attacked the Zephyrians? The same ones. But this is different. This is their entire battle fleet. Carlos pulled up intelligence reports on his screen. "According to our sources, the Krillian Empire has been planning this for months. They want to make an example of New Harmony, show the galaxy that helping humans was a mistake." Danny looked up from his medical station. "How many people are on that trading station?" 1,500 beings from 12 different species, Jake replied. "Including families. Including children." The bridge fell silent. Everyone understood what they were facing. This was not a rescue mission anymore. This was war. "Sir," reported Lieutenant Kevin Walsh from the communication station, "I'm receiving a transmission from the Council of Worlds. They're asking us to wait for backup." "How long?" Jake asked. 3 days minimum. Maybe a week? Jake looked at the sensor readings again. 40 enemy warships against whatever human vessels could reach the battle in time. The odds were impossible. The smart thing to do was wait for the galactic community to organize a proper response, but 1,500 innocent people would be dead or enslaved by then. "Send a message to all Terran Intervention Corps vessels in this sector," Jake ordered. "Emergency response to New Harmony. All available ships." "Sir, that's only 37 vessels. Most of them are converted civilian ships." "Then that's what we fight with." Over the next 2 hours, human ships began dropping out of hyperspace near New Harmony. They were not the sleek warships of military fleets. They were cargo haulers with weapons bolted to their hulls, passenger liners converted to troop transports, mining ships equipped with military shields. Each one was crewed by volunteers who had answered the call. Captain Sarah Bennett arrived in a converted hospital ship. "Jake, my crew is mostly doctors and nurses. We're not fighters." "Then stay back and prepare to treat wounded," Jake replied. "Both theirs and ours." Commander Ryan Foster brought 12 mining vessels from the outer colonies. "Admiral, these ships weren't built for combat. Half my crews are civilian volunteers." "The best kind of crew," Jake said. "They're fighting for something they believe in." As the human fleet assembled, the Krillian Empire watched with growing confusion. War leader Threx, the same commander who had fled from the human ship months earlier, commanded the enemy fleet from his flagship, the Blood Talon. "How many human ships?" he asked his sensor officer. 37 vessels, war leader. Most appear to be civilian craft with minimal weapons." Threx studied the tactical display. The humans were outnumbered and outgunned. Their ships were smaller and less powerful than Krillian warships. This should be an easy victory. But something about the human formation made him uneasy. They had positioned themselves between his fleet and the trading station, completely blocking his access to the target. It was the formation of protectors, not conquerors. "Open communications to the human fleet," Threx ordered. Jake's face appeared on the view screen of the Blood Talon. The human admiral looked tired but determined. Behind him, Threx could see the bridge of a ship built for work, not war. "I am War Leader Threx of the Krillian Empire," Threx announced. "Withdraw your ships and we will allow you to live." "I'm Admiral Morrison of the Terran Intervention Corps," Jake replied calmly. "You have 60 seconds to withdraw from this system before we remove you." Threx laughed, a harsh sound that echoed through his ship. "You have 37 ships. I have 40 warships crewed by professional warriors. Your mathematics are poor." "My mathematics are fine," Jake said. "I count 40 ships that are about to get their asses kicked by a bunch of humans who don't like bullies. You would risk your lives for aliens you don't even know?" Jake's expression hardened. "That's exactly what we do. That's what humans do." The communication ended, leaving Threx staring at a blank screen. He had fought dozens of battles against dozens of species. He understood military tactics, political calculation, and strategic thinking, but he did not understand humans. "War leader," his tactical officer reported, "the humans are moving into attack formation." On the bridge of the ESS Guardian, Jake opened fleet communications to address all 37 human ships. Each vessel carried people who had volunteered to risk their lives for strangers. They were mechanics and doctors, teachers and farmers, students and retirees. None of them were professional soldiers, but all of them were human. "This is Admiral Morrison to all Terran Intervention Corps vessels. Today we face an enemy that wants to hurt innocent people. They think we'll run away because we're outnumbered. They think we'll give up because the odds are bad. They don't understand that humans don't abandon people who need help." Jake paused, looking around his bridge at the crew that had started this journey by stealing a single ship to save 12 Zephyrians. 6 months ago, we were 4 people in a stolen ship trying to help strangers. Today we're 15,000 volunteers from every nation on Earth, and we're still trying to help strangers. That's not going to change. When someone calls for help, humans answer, no matter the cost. He took a deep breath and gave the order that would be remembered throughout galactic history. "All ships, engage the enemy. Let's show them what Deathworlders can do." The Battle of New Harmony lasted 4 hours and 17 minutes. When it was over, the Krillian Empire's battle fleet had been completely destroyed. 31 of their 40 warships were disabled or destroyed. The survivors fled into hyperspace and never returned to terrorize peaceful worlds again. The human fleet had lost 8 ships and 200 volunteers, but they had saved 1,500 innocent lives. News of the victory spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. For the first time in recorded history, a numerically inferior force had defeated the Krillian Empire in open battle. More importantly, they had done it to protect strangers they had never met. On the Council of Worlds Station, Elder Zenth of the Karathi Empire reviewed the battle recordings with amazement. "How is this possible? The humans were outnumbered and outgunned." Ambassador Keelan of the Million Collective studied the tactical analysis. "They fought like each ship was willing to sacrifice itself to save the others. No species fights with that level of individual commitment, because no species comes from a world like Earth," observed Captain Vextar. "Humans evolved on a planet that tried to kill them every day. They survived by protecting each other. Now they protect everyone." President Martinez received the battle report while meeting with Earth's cabinet in Washington. The room was quiet as she read the casualty lists and victory reports. 200 volunteers gave their lives to save 1,500 aliens, she announced to the room, and 10,000 more people have applied to join the Terran Intervention Corps since the battle ended. Ma'am, asked the Secretary of Defense, what do we do now? We've become the galaxy's unofficial police force. We keep answering when people call for help, Martinez replied simply. It's what humans do. Over the following months, something unprecedented happened in galactic civilization. Species that had lived in fear for generations began to feel safe. Pirates and raiders learned to avoid systems where human ships might respond to distress calls. Peaceful worlds started to prosper without the constant threat of attack. The Zephyrians composed songs about the humans who came when called. The Milian Collective established permanent cultural exchange programs with Earth. Even the cautious Karathi opened their borders to human merchants and diplomats. But the most significant change was in humanity itself. For the first time in their violent history,